I love platform fighting games. I've always been watching competitive Smash Bros tournaments, and now Rivals of Aether 2 tournaments, and I just think it's a fun genre with loads of potential. And while Smash Bros has always been the most dominant game in the genre, on this channel, I've discussed potential companies who could compete with Nintendo in the platform fighting game genre. Disney was the first video I made on this topic, then Sony, and now today, let's talk about Dreamworks. Dreamworks is the second biggest animation studio in America, outside of Disney, and was founded in 1994 by Jeffrey Katzenberg to directly compete against Disney because Katzenberg is the #1 Disney hater after stepping down as chairman to Disney. So for Dreamworks to stand out, they created animated movies that were always a bit more crude, and also mixed in more adult humor than Disney, who were known for making squeaky clean rated G movies. And after the success of Shrek, Dreamworks was here to stay, and has had many big hits over the next 2 decades. So I think they would be another great company to try and take down Super Smash Bros. So without further ado, let's discuss what if Dreamworks made a platform fighting game. And let's start by talking about I want to have a solid roster of characters who best represent the rich history of Dreamworks, while not double dipping too much into each franchise. So I'll start with a solid 16 character roster, with potential DLC for later. So who better to start off the roster than with Shrek? Shrek is essentially the poster child of Dreamworks, and in this game, he would be a heavyweight grappler, kind of like Donkey Kong. His moveset would include punches and kicks featured in the many brawls he's had in the movies, but I do think most of his special moves could feature a lot of the fairy tale creatures, like Gingerbread Man as a projectile, or even a ranged command grab, where he throws Pinocchio at an enemy and just like tangles them up. On top of that, he should definitely have a move where he burps and creates like a gas that damages enemies, kind of like Bowser's fire breath, but grosser. I also think he could have a farting mechanic similar to Wario's waft as a finishing move, or it could just be his main form of recovery. Either way, it would be gross and on brand for Shrek. Shrek's stage could easily be the far, far away castle, with Donkey and Dragon randomly popping up in the background creating fire hazards, as well as other hilarious characters from the franchise like the big bad wolf blowing people off the map as a stage hazard. And you gotta have that far, far away Hollywood sign in the background, of course. Shrek is love, Shrek is life. Pussing Boots! Pussing Boots started off as a character in the Shrek franchise, but his spin-off movies have shown that he deserves to be his own character in this game. Plus, his playstyle would be the total opposite of Shrek's. He'd be a super fast but small sword fighter, similar to characters like Young Link or Meta Knight. Most of his attacks would just be classic sword fighter attacks, and he will also have some kicks with his iconic boots. He could also have a projectile in the form of his hairball that he spits up, which he's known for having from time to time. I also think he should definitely have his stupid cat spin attack as his side special. You know, the one where he straight up just spins around? That move is hilarious and would fit in a game like this. He should also have a counter in the form of him doing his cute little beady eyes, so it stuns an enemy when you do it, allowing for a killing blow. It would have a small range and window, so it's not super overpowered, but if you land it, you know you kind of just won the fight. Cause come on, look at him, he's so cute. His stage should be on the Wishing Star, which could act as the final destination for this game, with all the beautiful colors and awesome music from his movie. Puss in Boots definitely belongs in a game like this. Po! Po, aka the Kung Fu Panda, is an obvious fighter for this game. He would be a heavyweight brawler with a moveset similar to that of Ryu and Ken from Street Fighter, but with a more defensive moveset that uses the enemy's strength against them. His moves would also incorporate his belly a lot, as he does in the movies, and even have a ground pound from the air where he sits on his enemies, which would be very powerful. And I also think he should have the ability to eat projectiles and chomp on enemies, kind of like how Wario munches on things. He could also have a reflector in the form of his belly, kind of like King K. Rool. I think his main special attack would be the whooshy finger hold, which would get stronger the more damage he takes, and can even have a KO meter kind of thing like Little Mac. For his recovery, I think he could incorporate fireworks in his moveset to get back on stage and fly around, as it would be in theme for his character. And he could also have cool alternative skins like the Dragon Warrior outfit, which he always pictures himself wearing, and eventually he does wear in the third movie. His stage should easily be the Jade Palace, which can act as sort of a battlefield type stage and can feature many of the prominent Kung Fu Panda characters in the background, like Master Shifu, Tigress, and other Furious 5 members. In a Dreamworks fighting game, I'd be stupid not to add Kung Fu Panda. Toothless! While I could have chosen Hiccup, we all know that Toothless is the one doing the real work, and I think it would be fun to have a quadrupedal playable character in this game. Toothless can obviously completely fly around, so he would have insanely good recovery, and his attacks would involve his wings, his tail, and just slapping people around like Yoshi but with wings. He would shoot his fast fireballs as his main projectile, kind of like Falco's laser projectile but a bit stronger. Toothless would also have a command grab that could pick up enemies and drop them from the sky. And of course, Toothless would also have the ability to temporarily go invisible with his electrical fireball ability that he earned in the third movie. Toothless seriously could be an extremely fun and original idea for a platform fighting character, because we've never really seen a full-on flying character in a platform fighting game. So it could be really unique, but we'd obviously want Toothless to not seem broken, so he'd probably have to be a bit lighter to make up for this. I also think Toothless could have an alt skin where you play as his girlfriend, the Light Fury, since they are very identical in size, and it would give How to Train Your Dragon fans essentially 2 reps in this game for the price of 1. Now, for a stage, I think it would be fun to have it set on the back of the Bewilderbeast from the second movie. You have this huge dragon that's moving, and the stage would change depending on the angle. Yeah, it wouldn't be a competitive map, but this will still be a party game, so we can have silly free-for-all maps full of hazards on top of more tournament legal ones. The Penguins of Madagascar. Okay, these guys are my absolute favorite characters in the Dreamworks filmography. I think it would be cool to essentially play as all 4 at the same time in sort of a weird combination of Ice Climbers and Olimar, where you can switch between each penguin by having them throw each other, and each penguin has different main abilities, from Skipper having the strongest attacks, or Kowalski having gadgets, Private being the fastest, and Rico throwing things up and using them mid-fight. Their main moveset would involve just a bunch of slaps that they're pretty much known for, with a wild assortment of tools like duct tape and spoons at their disposal. And of course, they'll slide around the stage, making their hitbox super low, like how Kirby is when he crouches. Their stage would have to be the broken plane they made in Madagascar 2 that's crashing out of the sky. The other Madagascar characters can be inside freaking out as cameos, which is pretty fun. These guys can have one of the most interesting and weird movesets, and I think they are the perfect characters to represent both their own franchise and the Madagascar franchise as a whole. Roz! The Wild Robot was such an incredible movie, and Roz would easily be one of the coolest fighters in this game. She can utilize a ton of the different moves she learned from all the different animals, like running on all 4s or the skunk attack. There's a ton of potential moves that can make for a quirky, goofy character. She would also have a ton of moves that have her arms stretched out, kind of like Min Min, but less broken. She can even have a scan-like ability that makes her next attack a lot stronger, and since she's truly a wild robot, she can even call upon the wild animals to assist her in combat. I think her stage can be on the treetops, acting like kind of a town and city type map, with a bunch of wooden structures and a lot of the animals in the background watching the action, and even cheering on if Roz is the character you're playing. Wallace and Grommit! So technically, Wallace and Grommit is made by Aardman Animations, who had a long-term partnership with Dreamworks, and now they no longer have that exclusive deal. But let's assume Dreamworks gets Wallace and Grommit in this scenario. They would be amazing. They would play a bit like Pokemon Trainer, where Wallace is in his robotic pants and Grommit is on the sidelines with a remote control and always assisting Wallace in combat. Wallace will have a ton of different mechanical inventions and trinkets at his disposal, playing a little bit like Bowser Jr. in that regard. But he can also be kind of like Villager, where he just accidentally hurts people by tripping and dropping his plate with cheese, or spilling tea, or losing control of his robot legs to kick people, and he says sorry all the time. It would be really funny. His recovery can be him calling a rocket ship to pick him up, like the one they took to the moon, which would also be where their stage would be, cause the moon is made of cheese, duh. Wallace and Grommit could be a ton of fun, but if Dreamworks can't get them, they can always go with this as a backup. Moses! Okay, that's a joke. Moving on. Megamind! Megamind is an underrated gem in Dreamworks' catalog, and he would fit as a cool zoner type character with a bunch of weaponry to shoot people from a distance and create illusions to trick enemies. He would play like Samus, but also with a bit of Zetterburn's clone trickery with holograms of himself. He would have a large arsenal, but he would be kind of okay in close range, with his main attacks not being the strongest. I think a cool special ability he can have is the ability to turn into fake Metro Man for just a little bit, and during this state he can do stronger hits in close range. I think think a stage would be on top of the Metro Man statue that sits in front of the Metro Man Museum, because it would just look super nice and could act as a solid competitive stage with a simple layout, while also having cool stuff in the background like Megamind's minion or the villain Titan, just like being annoying in the background or something. Poppy! So the Trolls franchise has grossed over $600 million, so they should probably be included. And I chose Poppy because this roster was really lacking in women. Her main combat abilities can revolve around music and singing, while being a sort of short-range brawler kinda like Mario. Her music can help increase her attack range with sound waves, because music can canonically hurt people, like Branch's grandma.
Nut, why won't you sing?
Because singing killed my grandma, okay?
She can also have a projectile in the form of her glitter that she sprays in enemies' faces, dealing decent damage. She can have multiple different instruments to attack with, like her guitar, and because in this world music is magical, her recovery can literally just be her singing and floating with it, or just being carried by any of the many floating creatures in the movies. Her stage should be a stage, like at the end of Trolls World Tour, with a huge audience. It could actually be like the Pokemon Stadium of this game, with that double platform neutral layout that changes with different genres. Like when the music changes to country, it becomes a more country looking place. When it's heavy metal, it's more like demonic. And when it's rap music, it's just like a chill vibe. It could be a fun and colorful stage that with hazards off can also be competitively viable. Captain Underpants! My childhood consisted of me reading a bunch of Captain Underpants books by Dav Pilkey, with the Flipporamas and everything, so I was glad that Dreamworks made it into a movie. And now that means Captain Underpants can be a part of this game. He would play like Mario, but a little bit bigger, so I guess like Wario, just a brawler, but with the ability to glide around and fly for his recovery. I'd want him to fly around like Rob, where it's a lot of flying, but not unlimited. He could also have a projectile in the form of him flinging his unlimited underwear at enemies. And his stage could be on top of the school, with Professor Poopy Pants in his giant toilet robot wreaking havoc and shrinking and enlarging random parts of the stage, including the players. Yes, there's actually a character called Professor Poopy Pants. It's a kid's book. Get off your high horse. Dogman! Dav Pilkey made another successful book series that Dreamworks turned into a movie, and this one is called Dogman. He's a cop that gets the head of a dog. It's really that simple. And he knows karate, as most dogmen do. His moveset can be kind of like Luigi, with a strange combo game, but also a fast projectile in the form of his favorite tennis ball, and some cool attacks and grabs that involve handcuffing the opponent. He can also call in a cop car, kind of like Wario, as a movement option. Now for his stage, it would have to be in OK City, when the buildings come alive, so you're fighting on moving skyscrapers essentially. It could be a very hectic and fun stage. Mr. Wolf! Mr. Wolf is the leader of the bad guys, from the movie The Bad Guys, and he has such a sick design. I think he actually could have special attacks that integrate each of the bad guy members. His grab can be Mr. Snake grabbing people from a distance, like Link does in Smash Bros. Miss Tarantula can hack the stage to give him his own platform, kind of like how Pac-Man or Sonic spawns his own little jump pad. Mr. Piranha can come out and fight with Mr. Wolf, kind of like how Rosalina and Luma work. And Mr. Shark can come out disguised as Mr. Wolf and attack kind of like Zelda's Phantom Slash. And all of his regular attacks can be like Joker but without a blade, but instead he uses his hands and maybe even some money bags to hit people with. His stage can be really anywhere in the city, but I think fighting on top of a bunch of cop cars speeding through the city like an F-Zero stage could lead to intense battles for a more party type game. RJ! RJ is the main character from an underrated classic, Over the Hedge. Seriously, this movie was hilarious. Or was I just 11 years old? Who knows? So RJ's a sly raccoon who's equipped with a golf bag full of human items, and I think his kit should revolve around that. His main attacks can use his claws, with special attacks involving throwing Doritos chips like ninja shurikens and spraying Cheese Whiz at enemies. His recovery can even be him opening up a bag of chips and it creates a huge explosion, like how it is in the movie, and that could propel him upward and on stage just create a huge explosion. His stage would probably just be a hedge, but I don't think that would be a big enough stage, so maybe it would also include houses and be like Ness's Earthbound stage with cars and the exterminator guy in the background causing havoc. Grog! Grog is the main character from The Croods, and he's a big caveman, played by Nicolas Cage actually. He would play like Donkey Kong, but with a bunch of his ancient inventions at his disposal, like rolling around with a huge boulder, kind of like Jigglypuff's rollout ability, or smacking enemies in the face with a rock slab and calling it a snapshot. He would also have projectiles where he would just throw a huge rock from the ground, kind of like Crag from Rivals of Aether. His recovery can be a volcano eruption underneath him, launching him upward back to stage like at the end of the first movie. And his stage would be a huge rock formation in this ancient world, with a bunch of the scary ancient animals coming in and out, attacking you as a stage hazard. Look, I'm not a big fan of The Croods, but there's 2 movies, so clearly somebody is. And somebody will be happy that Grog is in this game. Jack Frost! Jack Frost is the main character in the movie Rise of the Guardians. He has ice powers and a cool ice staff, so he could fight kind of like a ranged sword fighter with ice projectiles. I think he should be floaty and have a strong recovery like Sora, since Jack Frost can float around in the movie. He should also be able to make ice platforms as part of his recovery, kind of like Steve, but not as broken. I think some of his abilities should have a freezing effect if he lands specific hits, like how the ice climbers can freeze opponents, but not in a way where it's really annoying. And his stage would be at the Guardians headquarters in the North Pole, with all the other Guardians changing the stage with their individual powers, like the Sandman or the Tooth Fairy. The Boss Baby! And finally, I would be remiss if I didn't include the Boss Baby. The Boss Baby would attack with his little briefcase. He would definitely be equipped with Nerf guns as projectiles, and one of his smash attacks can involve a stapler, kind of like how he used that to threaten the main character's stuffed animal. He's so evil. He could drive around in his little car, and his recovery can be him slingshotting himself with his baby bouncer and slamming on enemies while wearing a helmet. There's actually a ton of really cool moves the Boss Baby could have because the movie is just so outrageous. There's really a ton of options. His stage would be at Babyco headquarters, which is in the clouds and can act as a solid neutral map while having fun Babyco references happening in the background. So, that's the core roster, a really solid hodgepodge of Dreamworks icons from the last 20 years. Now, let's talk about... Like the Disney and Sony platform fighting game videos, I think the core gameplay can just copy Smash Ultimate's gameplay to a T, or even Rivals of Aether 2. Both of those games feel polished and smooth while not feeling slow and clunky like other platform fighters. So I think it would be best for Dreamworks to follow a winning formula like those. However, I do think they need to embrace the party side and goofy side in this game. There needs to be plenty of items from all the movies, and as we mentioned before, a lot of stage hazards. But for those people that take it more seriously, there should be a competitive mode with competitive versions of each stage, with a stage striking system similar to Rivals of Aether 2. Now, I do think Dreamworks is actually really well suited to have a cool subspace emissary type story mode, with all of the characters being a part of the story, and with the Dreamworks kid on the moon being the person that kind of guides you through the campaign, including really cool boss fights against iconic villains like the Fairy Godmother, Jack Horner, Lord Shen, and with Pitch Black from Rise of the Guardians being one of the final bosses in the game, because that guy is menacing. However, I do think what could really be cool is the final boss in the story mode also being a surprise character that you can play as. Do you hear that? He's coming. Death! Death from Pussing Boots is absolutely the best villain in all of the Dreamworks catalog of villains, and I think he would be such an insanely cool surprise character, only unlockable after beating the story mode. You'll fight him to the death, and at the end, you'll unlock him. He would be a sword fighter with his dual round blades, and he would definitely be able to teleport around and disappear in the shadows. I feel like he'd play like Zetterburn from Rivals of Aether, mixed in with his own scary flair. Now, obviously anybody watching this video will know that Death is in there, but if they actually make this game, don't spoil it for people, okay? Now, let's talk about... If this game comes with a full-on story mode, I think it could sell for $20 plus. And then on top of that, they could sell cosmetics for each character, while also having plenty of ways to unlock items for free. I think following Rivals of Aether's approach to cosmetics is smart, as it's both beneficial to the developers and it's fair for the players. I also think they should sell specific skins to help increase prize pools for big tournaments, as this is a smart way to get Smash pros to play your game over others, as the prize pool for Smash is really low. In exchange exchange for selling the game at a price point at all, I think all future stages and characters should come for free. DLC should be other characters from the popular franchises like Fiona, Tigress, and maybe other villains not featured in the story mode like Tai Lung. And plus, this will also allow DreamWorks to add new characters and skins from future projects to help promote their movies. Kind of like how Marvel Rivals adds skins to promote movies as well. Overall, I think DreamWorks has made a very unique catalog of iconic movies that would make for a great crossover platform fighting game. But what do you think? Which of these characters would you main if this game existed? Is there a character I forgot that I should have included? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you like this series, I could do this again with other big crossovers, like Microsoft or something. So let me know if you'd like that in the comments as well. But with that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you later.